The artificial sun of Meridian Point burned at its zenith cycle, casting harsh light across the crowded marketplace of the frontier station. Nessa Valen pulled her warm shawl tighter around her shoulders, the fabric doing little to shield her distinctive silver skin from the stares of passing traders and workers. Her daughter Riel walked beside her, small hand clutching the fabric of her mother's sleeve, violet eyes wide with the constant wonder and wariness of a child who'd seen too much change too quickly. They'd been on the station for nearly 2 months now, and Nessa's carefully hoarded credits were down to almost nothing. Every shop, every warehouse, every establishment she'd approached had turned her away with barely concealed disdain. The frontier was supposed to be more accepting than the core worlds, but prejudice had a way of following you across the stars. "Mama, my feet hurt," Riel whispered, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of a dozen different species haggling and arguing in the market square. "I know, sweetling. Just a little further." Nessa's throat tightened with guilt. Her daughter deserved better than this endless walking, this constant uncertainty. At 6 years old, Riel should be in school, making friends, living the carefree life every child deserved. Instead, she was here, watching her mother beg for work that never came. Nessa's eyes scanned the job postings displayed on a flickering holographic board near the market's edge. Most were for positions requiring station citizenship or documentation she didn't have. Others explicitly stated locals only or used coded language that meant the same thing. "Excuse me?" A voice spoke from behind her, warm and distinctly human. "You've been staring at that board for 10 minutes. If you're looking for work, I might have something." Nessa turned slowly, instinctively positioning herself between the stranger and Riel. The man before her was human, somewhere in his mid-30s, with sun-weathered skin that spoke of time spent in real atmospheres rather than recycled station air. His dark hair was slightly too long, curling at the collar of his practical work jacket. But it was his eyes that caught her attention, brown and direct, with none of the calculating coldness she'd come to expect from strangers. "What kind of work?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "I run a repair dock down in Section 7. He gestured vaguely toward the lower levels of the station. "Ship maintenance, component fabrication, that sort of thing. My last assistant took a position on an outbound freighter last week, and I'm drowning in work." Nessa studied him, searching for the catch. There was always a catch. "I don't have any formal certifications in ship repair." "Can you follow instructions? Keep inventory organized? Learn on the job?" When she nodded slowly, he smiled. "Then we can work with that. I'm Marcus Webb, by the way." Nessa. She didn't offer her family name, and he didn't press for it. Marcus crouched down, bringing himself to Riel's eye level. "And who's this?" Riel, who normally hid from strangers, peered out from behind Nessa's leg. "Riel," she said softly. "That's a beautiful name. You know, Riel, I have a workshop with all sorts of interesting tools and machines. Some of them even glow different colors. Would you like to see?" Nessa's hand tightened protectively on her daughter's shoulder, but something in Marcus's open expression made her hesitate. This wasn't the look of someone with ulterior motives. This was genuine kindness. She'd almost forgotten what that looked like. "The job," she said carefully. "What are the terms?" Marcus straightened, his business demeanor returning though his smile remained. "Standard station wage for assistant mechanics. Hours are flexible, especially if you have childcare concerns. There's a small apartment attached to the workshop that I'm not using. Previous tenant moved out 3 months ago, and it's just been sitting empty. You'd be welcome to it as part of the compensation package." It was too good. Far too good. Nessa's survival instincts screamed at her to refuse, to walk away before this became another trap. But Riel's hand was so small in hers, and she could feel her daughter's exhaustion like it was her own. Why? The question came out harsher than she intended. Why would you offer this to someone you just met? To an alien with no references, no documentation, nothing? Marcus's expression grew thoughtful, and for a moment, something old and painful flickered in his eyes. Let's just say I know what it's like to need a second chance. And I'm a good enough judge of character to know when someone's running from circumstances rather than consequences. He paused, then added, I'm not asking for your story. Nessa, I'm just offering you a job. Take it or leave it. Nessa looked down at Riel, whose violet eyes were bright with hope. When had her daughter last looked hopeful? I'll take it, she heard herself say, on a trial basis. If it doesn't work out, then we part ways, no hard feelings. Marcus extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. After a moment's hesitation, Nessa took it. His palm was calloused and warm, his grip firm but not aggressive. The workshop is about a 20-minute walk from here, Marcus said, releasing her hand. We can head there now if you're ready, or we can meet tomorrow morning if you need time to think it over. Now is fine. Nessa couldn't bear the thought of spending another night in the cramped, expensive hostel room they'd been renting by the day dot as they walked through the station's lower levels. Marcus kept up a steady stream of conversation that required little response from Nessa. He pointed out landmarks, explained the various districts, and kept his pace slow enough for Riel's short legs. The deeper they went, the less crowded the corridors became, the lighting shifting from harsh fluorescent to the warmer glow of residential zones. Here we are. Marcus stopped before a large bay door marked with faded numbers. He pressed his palm to the access panel, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. The workshop beyond was larger than Nessa had expected, a sprawling space filled with equipment in various states of organization. A small spacecraft occupied the center of the floor, its hull panels removed to expose the intricate systems beneath. The air smelled of metal and ozone, and something else, something that reminded Nessa of her old life, before everything had fallen apart. It's not fancy, Marcus said, misreading her silence for disappointment. But the equipment is good, and the work is steady. It's perfect, Nessa said quietly, and meant it. Riel had already drifted toward a workbench, her eyes fixed on a display of glowing power cores arranged by color. Those are safe, Marcus assured her, completely discharged. She can look all she wants. He turned back to Nessa. Want to see the apartment? The living space was accessed through a door at the back of the workshop. It was small but clean, with a main room that served as kitchen and living area, and two smaller rooms off a short hallway. The furniture was basic but functional, and the walls were painted a soft cream that made the space feel larger than it was. Previous tenant left some basics in the kitchen, Marcus said, opening cabinets to show plates, cups, and cooking supplies. And the refresher unit was just serviced last month, so it should work fine. Nessa walked through the space in a daze, her fingers trailing over the smooth countertops, the comfortable couch, the real bed visible through one of the bedroom doors. It was more than she'd had in months, more than she'd hoped for. Mama, look! Riel had discovered the smaller bedroom, her delighted voice echoing from within. It has a window, a real window. Marcus smiled at Nessa's expression. The view's not much, just the docking bay, but there's natural light during the station's day cycle. It's more than enough. Nessa's voice cracked slightly. She cleared her throat, fighting for composure. When do I start? How about tomorrow morning? Give you time to settle in, get some rest. He pulled a datapad from his jacket pocket. I'll need some basic information for the employment records. Nothing intrusive, just what the station authorities require. Name, previous residence, that sort of thing. Nessa's stomach clenched, but Marcus's expression remained open and unconcerned. She gave him the bare minimum, her first name, the last station they'd stayed at, her species classification. He didn't push for more, simply inputted the information and tucked the datapad away. All set. He moved toward the door, then paused. Nessa, I meant what I said. I'm not asking questions about your past. But if there's ever anything I need to know, anything that might affect the safety of my shop or my people, I trust you'll tell me. She met his eyes and saw understanding there. And something else, the beginning of trust. It terrified her. I will, she promised, meaning it. After Marcus left, Nessa sank onto the couch, Riel immediately climbing into her lap. They sat in silence, listening to the distant sounds of the station, feeling the unfamiliar sensation of walls around them that might actually become home. I like him, Mama, Riel said softly. He has kind eyes. Nessa pressed her lips to her daughter's silvery hair, breathing in her familiar scent. Yes, sweetling, he does. That night, after Riel had fallen asleep in the smaller bedroom, Nessa stood at the window Marcus had mentioned, staring out at the docking bay beyond. Ships came and went in a constant flow, each one carrying people toward their own destinations. Their own dreams or disasters. She touched the pendant hidden beneath her shirt, the one piece of her old life she'd kept. The metal was warm from her body heat, a reminder of everything she'd lost and everything she was trying to protect. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, for the first time in months, Nessa let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, they'd finally found a place where they could stop running. The morning sun cycle of Meridian Point filtered through the workshop's high windows, casting long shadows across the polished metal floor. Nessa had been awake since before dawn, unable to shake the nervous energy that came with new beginnings. She dressed carefully in the most presentable of her worn clothing and braided her silver hair back in a practical style that kept it away from her face. Riel was still sleeping when Nessa slipped out of the apartment, leaving the door slightly ajar so she could hear if her daughter called. The workshop was quiet, lit only by the soft glow of standby lights on various pieces of equipment. She took a moment to orient herself, taking in the organized chaos of tools, parts, and half-finished projects. You're early. Marcus's voice came from above, and she looked up to see him descending a metal staircase from what appeared to be an office loft. He carried 2 steaming mugs, and the rich aroma of real coffee filled the air. Couldn't sleep? Old habits, Nessa said, accepting the mug he offered. Their fingers brushed briefly, and she felt an unexpected warmth spread through her chest. I wanted to familiarize myself with the layout before starting. Smart. Marcus leaned against a workbench, studying her over the rim of his cup. In the morning light, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the silver threading through his dark hair at the temples. He was older than she'd initially thought, probably early 40s, with the kind of quiet competence that came from years of experience. The day usually starts around 8, but I tend to come in earlier when I have a lot on my mind. And do you? Have a lot on your mind? His lips curved in a slight smile. Maybe, but let's focus on getting you oriented first. He set down his mug and gestured for her to follow. The main floor is divided into 4 work zones. Heavy repairs over there, electronics and systems work here, fabrication in the back, and the diagnostic bay where that courier ship is sitting. As he walked her through the space, explaining the organization system and safety protocols, Nessa found herself relaxing. Marcus was a natural teacher, patient and clear in his explanations, never talking down to her despite her lack of formal training. The inventory system is probably going to be your biggest challenge at first, he said, pulling up a holographic display from a wall terminal. Every part has a tracking code, and we need to log everything that comes in or goes out. My previous assistant was a bit casual about record keeping, so things are a mess right now. Nessa studied the chaotic display, her mind already sorting through possible organizational structures. I could reorganize this by component type first, then by ship class compatibility. It would make cross-referencing much faster. Marcus raised his eyebrows. You've done inventory management before? She caught herself, realizing she'd revealed more than intended. I've picked up a few things over the years. Before he could pursue the question, the main door opened with a clang, and a massive figure ducked through. The man, and he was entirely human, just extraordinarily large, was built like one of the industrial cargo loaders, with arms thick as support beams and a chest that seemed to require its own postal code. His shaved head gleamed under the workshop lights, and his grin was infectious. Morning, boss. Traffic was murder coming through Sector 12. Some idiot crashed a hover cart into. He stopped mid-sentence, noticing Nessa. Well, hello there. You must be the new assistant Marcus mentioned. Joran. This is Nessa. Nessa, my chief mechanic and occasional disaster magnet. Joran Hawley. Joran laughed, a booming sound that echoed through the workshop. Disaster magnet? Boss, you wound me. I prefer adventure enthusiast. He extended a hand the size of a dinner plate toward Nessa. Welcome aboard. Fair warning, Marcus here is a perfectionist. But he's a good guy once you get past the grumpy exterior. I'm not grumpy, Marcus protested, but there was warmth in his voice. You're absolutely grumpy before your second cup of coffee, Joran countered, already moving toward the courier ship. Anyway, Nessa, if you need anything, or if the boss here gives you trouble, just let me know. I've got years of experience managing him. As Joran disappeared beneath the ship's hull, Nessa caught Marcus's eye. He seems energetic. That's a diplomatic way of putting it. But he's the best mechanic I've ever worked with, and he's loyal to a fault. Marcus drained the last of his coffee. Come on, I'll show you the parts storage, and we can start tackling that inventory. The morning passed in a blur of activity. Nessa threw herself into the work, grateful for the distraction it provided from her constant worries. The inventory system was indeed a disaster, but it was a disaster she could fix. She worked methodically, her fingers flying over the terminal as she reorganized, cross-referenced, and updated records that hadn't been properly maintained in months. Marcus checked on her periodically, bringing her water and answering questions, but mostly leaving her to work independently. She appreciated his trust, the way he didn't hover or micromanage. It reminded her of better times, when she'd been valued for her skills, rather than viewed with suspicion for her heritage. Around midday, Riel appeared in the workshop doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Nessa immediately moved to her daughter's side, but Marcus got there first, crouching down with an easy smile. Good morning, Riel. Are you hungry? I was just about to order lunch. Riel nodded shyly, then looked up at her mother for permission. Nessa felt her heart constrict at the automatic deference, the learned caution that no 6-year-old should have to carry. That would be lovely, thank you, Nessa said softly. Marcus pulled up his unit. How do you feel about Dantari noodles? There's a place 2 sectors over that makes the best soup in the station. With the purple vegetables? Riel's eyes lit up. I love those. Then purple vegetables it is. Marcus placed the order, then stood. Should be here in about 20 minutes. In the meantime, Riel, would you like to help me with something? He led the little girl to a workbench where various small components were scattered. I need to sort these power couplings by size. Think you can handle that? Riel nodded eagerly, climbing onto a stool and beginning to organize the pieces with careful concentration. Nessa watched them together, Marcus patiently explaining what each part was for, her daughter's usual wariness melting away under his gentle attention. Something in her chest ached at the sight, not pain exactly, but a longing so intense it almost hurt. Your daughter's very bright, a new voice said, and Nessa turned to find a figure standing in the workshop entrance. The speaker was Keltherin, one of the insectoid species that dominated trade in this sector. His crystalline carapace glinted in the light, and his multiple eyes fixed on her with uncomfortable intensity. Such a curious age. They learn so much about the world. Can I help you? Marcus had appeared at Nessa's side, his voice polite, but with an edge of steel. Tavik, we met last cycle when I brought in my freighter for repairs. The Keltherin's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. I was in the area and thought I'd check on the progress. The work won't be complete until tomorrow, Marcus said. I'll come you when it's ready. Of course, of course. But Tavik's eyes remained on Nessa, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. I don't believe I've seen your assistant before. New hire? Very recent, Marcus confirmed, moving slightly to block the alien's view of Nessa. Was there anything else? No. I'll await your come. Tavik turned to leave, then paused. Though I must say, Mr. Webb, you have interesting taste in employees. Very ... distinctive. After the Keltherin left, the workshop felt several degrees colder. Joran emerged from beneath the courier ship, his usually jovial expression serious. Boss, I don't like that guy. He gives me the creeps. Agreed. Marcus turned to Nessa, his brown eyes searching her face. Did you recognize him? Nessa shook her head, but her hands were trembling. No, but he was looking at me like he was memorizing every detail. Probably just curious, Marcus said, though his tone suggested he didn't believe it. A lot of the regulars haven't seen a Valorian this far out on the rim. Nessa's breath caught. She hadn't mentioned her species name, only given the basic classification required for the station records. How did you... I'm not completely ignorant of galactic species, Marcus said gently. Your silver skin, the luminescent markings, the violet eyes your daughter, as Valorians, are distinctive. And rare out here. Most Valorians stay in the core systems, Nessa said carefully. There's no reason for them to come to frontier stations like this. But you did. It wasn't quite a question. Before Nessa could respond, the lunch delivery arrived, providing a welcome interruption. They ate together in the workshop's small break area. Marcus, Joran, Nessa, and Riel sharing a table like some strange makeshift family. Joran kept up a steady stream of jokes and stories that had Riel giggling, and even Nessa found herself relaxing, laughing at the big man's theatrical descriptions of various repair disasters. But she couldn't shake the memory of Tavik's calculating stare, the way his multiple eyes had tracked her every movement. She'd been so careful, so cautious about covering her tracks. Had she made a mistake? Left some trace that could be followed? After lunch, Marcus asked her to help him with a diagnostic on the courier ship. They worked in companionable silence for a while, Nessa's hands moving with practiced efficiency over the ship's neural interface. It wasn't until she'd successfully bypassed a corrupted system node that she realized her mistake. That's advanced work, Marcus said quietly. Very advanced. My previous assistant couldn't have done that. Joran might have managed it, but it would have taken him an hour. Nessa's hand stilled on the console. I told you I'd picked up some things, Nessa. Marcus moved closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. I meant what I said yesterday. I'm not asking for your whole story. But if you have technical skills like this, we're wasting you on inventory management. She turned to face him, surprised to find they were nearly touching in the confined space beneath the ship's access panel. I can't draw attention. I can't. Marcus, there are reasons I'm hiding what I can do. Okay. His acceptance was immediate, unquestioning. Then we'll be careful about it. You can help me with the complex work when it's just us, or when we can pass it off as my doing. But Nessa, talent like yours, it shouldn't have to hide. The sincerity in his voice. The way he was looking at her, like she was someone valuable, someone worth protecting, it undid something in Nessa's carefully constructed walls. Without thinking, she reached up and touched his face, her fingers trembling against the rough stubble of his jaw. "Why are you being so kind to us?" she whispered. Marcus covered her hand with his own, his eyes never leaving hers. "Maybe because kindness is rare out here, and I'm tired of pretending it doesn't matter." He paused, then added softly, "Or maybe because when I look at you, I see someone fighting like hell to protect what matters most. And I respect that more than I can say." The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility and danger, and something neither of them seemed quite ready to name. Nessa's heart hammered in her chest, her body leaning toward his, as if pulled by gravity. "Boss!" "Nessa, you two still under there?" Joran's voice boomed through the workshop. "Got another customer pulling into the bay." They broke apart quickly, both breathing harder than the work warranted. Marcus cleared his throat, running a hand through his hair in that gesture Nessa was learning meant he was flustered. We should get back to work," he said. "Yes, work." Nessa's voice came out slightly breathless. They emerged from beneath the ship to find Joran giving them a knowing look that made Nessa's cheeks burn. The big mechanic's grin was positively wicked, but he said nothing, simply jerked his thumb toward the bay door where a sleek, private yacht was settling onto the landing pad. The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze of work and stolen glances. Every time Nessa looked up, she found Marcus watching her, his expression thoughtful and intent. Every time their paths crossed in the workshop, there was a moment of connection, a brush of fingers or a shared smile that made her pulse quicken by evening. When the last customer had left and Joran had headed home, Nessa found herself alone in the workshop with Marcus. Riel had fallen asleep on the couch in the break room, exhausted by the day's excitement. The station's artificial night cycle had begun, and the workshop lights had dimmed to their evening setting, casting everything in soft shadow. "You're good at this," Marcus said, appearing beside her as she finished updating the day's work logs. "Better than good. You're a natural. I had practice in another life." The words slipped out before she could stop them. What happened to that life? Nessa closed her eyes, the weight of her secrets pressing down on her. "I made choices. Some good, some terrible. And now I'm here, trying to build something new from the wreckage. Sounds familiar." Marcus's hand found hers on the console, his fingers intertwining with her own. "I came out here 8 years ago after my wife died. Couldn't stand to stay in the core systems where everything reminded me of her. Thought I'd start fresh, build something that was just mine." "I'm sorry," Nessa said softly. "About your wife. It was a long time ago. The pain's less sharp now, more like an old ache that flares up sometimes." He squeezed her hand gently. "But it taught me something important. Life's too short to waste on fear. If something matters, if someone matters, you hold on with everything you have." Nessa turned to face him fully, her heart in her throat. "Marcus, Whatever she'd been about to say was lost as he cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. It was gentle at first, questioning, giving her every opportunity to pull away. But Nessa didn't want to pull away. She wanted this moment, this connection, this feeling of being seen and valued and desired. She kissed him back, her arms winding around his neck, pressing closer as the kiss deepened. Marcus's hand slid to her waist, pulling her against him, and Nessa made a soft sound of need that seemed to ignite something in both of them. They broke apart, breathing hard. Foreheads pressed together, the world narrowed to just the two of them and the thundering of their hearts. "I've wanted to do that all day," Marcus confessed, his voice rough. "Just today?" Nessa managed a shaky laugh. "Well, since yesterday, but I was trying to be professional." His thumb traced her cheekbone, his touch impossibly gentle. "Nessa, I know this is complicated. I know you have reasons to be careful. But I need you to know this isn't just ... I'm not looking for something casual. Neither am I, she whispered. But Marcus, my situation, I don't care. His certainty was absolute. Whatever you're running from, whatever brought you here, we'll face it together. You, me, and Riel. If you'll let me. Tears pricked at Nessa's eyes. When had anyone last offered to stand beside her, rather than expecting her to carry everything alone? You barely know me. Then let me get to know you. Let me in, Nessa, please. She should refuse. She should protect him from the danger that followed her like a shadow. She should, okay, she breathed. Okay, yes. His smile was brilliant, transforming his serious face into something radiant. He kissed her again, softer this time, full of promise and hope and beginnings. Later, after they'd checked on Riel and said their goodnights, Nessa stood in her apartment, watching the ships come and go through the docking bay window. Her lips still tingled from Marcus's kisses. Her body still hummed with the memory of his touch. For the first time in years, she let herself imagine a future that wasn't just survival. A future with work that fulfilled her, a home that felt safe, and maybe, just maybe, love. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't forget Tavik's calculating stare, the way he'd studied her like a puzzle to be solved. Trouble was coming. She could feel it in her bones, Dot. She just hoped that when it arrived, the fragile peace she'd found here would be strong enough to withstand the storm.